Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Standards Committee. I think we all know one another after several years together. So I'm going to start by asking our clerk to read the housekeeping notice.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting of the Standards Committee is being live streamed and will be recorded by the Council to support the production of the minutes and for the use of democratic services. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the chairman. Mute your microphone when you're not talking. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point along Bradley Road under the flyover. And finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies for the meeting?
Yeah, apologies have been received from Councillors Northover and Ricketts.
Thank you. And do we have any substitute members?
Councillor Wilson is substituting for Councillor Northover and Councillor Phipps is substituting for Councillor Ricketts.
Thank you very much. And item 3 on the agenda is the election of chairman. So we'd like to seek some nominations for the election of chairman. The nominations must be seconded. If there's more than one nomination received and seconded, the meeting will need to go to a secret ballot for that item. The meeting will not be broadcast while the secret ballot takes place, and a holding screen will be placed on the live stream. The Constitution indicates that the chairman or person presiding will have a second or casting vote if the votes are equal. The chairman will use a casting vote if required. Be glad to do that. And the chairman will request the clerk to advise of the outcome of the vote if it is a secret ballot. And then the newly elected chair will take over from me. So can we go to the election? Sir Brooks.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to propose the Vice Chairman from the previous session, and that is my good colleague Derek Borthwick, who is sitting to the right of me. I wish to propose that he is appointed chair for the next session of this committee. Thank you.
Very much. Councillor Phipps. Oh, I need a second. I'm sorry. Scotty.
Yeah, I would like to propose Councillor Marcus Andrews. I do believe that any councillor we have has to certainly have experience, which he has, be competent in the confidence of other members, and I would certainly like to propose him as chair of this committee.
Thank you. And is that seconded?
Yeah,
Councillor Wilson seconds that. Thank you very much. So we now proceed to a ballot, do we?
Job of chairman of the committee, I think it would be helpful. Thank you.
Sounds like a very, very good idea. So shall we start with Councillor Borthwick?
Good evening, everybody. It's clearly a great job once you become a chairman of a panel, and I've been on council work for the last 15 years, and most of those occasions I've always sat on the panel or been in one of the privileged positions, as I would say. I'm quite capable of controlling meetings during my lifetime, and I would particularly enjoy being chairman for this panel, because it's quite a careful one when you're dealing with so many appeals and complaints. It's a difficult one, really, but I feel confident about doing it, and I will enjoy doing it.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to submit myself as a candidate, as chairman for this standards committee. I am the only committee member who's been on the committee ever since it was established in May 2019. Over the years, I have been the chair of various bodies, for example, Policy and Resources Committee at Christchurch Borough Council in the 1990s. And I'm currently the chair of the Poole and Cherbourg Twinning Association. Clearly, being the chair of this committee needs careful diplomacy, and it does need somebody to be able to help the committee and the independent members reach a conclusion on how matters should be dealt with. And I would like to feel that I would be an excellent chair for the committee. So therefore, I would ask you to use your vote in the secret ballot in the best way possible for the interests of BCP Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both candidates. So we'll now proceed to the secret ballot. Are we ready to find the result? Which I don't have.
Go to the clerk.
I'll ask Louise to give us the result, please.
Thank you. It was 4 votes for Councillor Borthwick and 3 votes for Councillor Andrews. Therefore, Councillor Borthwick is elected as chairman.
I thank the members for their confidence, and I hope to run a happy ship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Borthwick, and I will happily vacate the chair for you to take your place here.
We will now take item 4, election of vice chairman. Could I have your nominations, please? Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Ricketts.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'd like to nominate Marcus Andrews as vice chairman of this committee for all the reasons that I gave previously. Thank you.
Second, Chair.
Sorry, over there. Sorry, one over there.
You need a second.
There's a second. Sorry, yes, you, Karen, for that.
Yes, yeah, just happy to second that. Thank
Thank you, Chair. Is to nominate as vice chairman of this committee and Filer, who is sitting to my right. I beg your pardon. There's been a slight modification to that recommendation, which is that I'm prepared and very pleased to recommend that my good colleague David Kelsey, sitting to my left, as vice chair of this committee for this session. Thank you, and apology.
Any other nominations, please? Nominations closed.
Second.
Oh, seconder. Sorry, need a seconder. Need a seconder. Yeah. And coffee fit. We'll have to wait a few moments' time and stop coughing.
Proceed to a secret ballot.
Yeah, we'll wait for Anne to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Proceed to it.
Yeah, we'll issue the vouchers anyway to Anne, and Anne can do hers when she comes back. Just collect the tickets. So they should put the tickets out. Second place.
Chairman, we need to proceed to the secret ballot by pausing the live stream if you're content.
Oh, sorry. Would you stop the stream, please? Right. Would you please inform us of the ballot, please? Result.
Certainly. There were 4 votes for Councillor Kelsey and 3 votes for Councillor Andrews. Therefore, Councillor Kelsey is elected as vice chairman.
Congratulations, David. Thank you for all voting. Right, declarations of interest. Has anybody got any declarations of interest on this agenda? No? Okay. Confirmation of the minutes. Unless anyone indicates otherwise, will they accept the minutes as printed? Yes, happy? Yep, thank you. Has there been any public issues at all?
Yes, Chairman. We've received the following statement from Alex McKinstry in relation to the annual report on complaints against councillors and the high number of unsuccessful complaints. 12 out of the 34 complaints against councillors have been dismissed as not breaching the Code of Conduct. As this is a high proportion, perhaps the committee could examine some of these ostensibly groundless complaints. Are they being assessed thoroughly, given the comments about resources in paragraph 18 of the report? As a resident, I'd welcome more resource in this area. Alternatively, if certain behaviours are observable, even in rejected complaints, 26 complaints, for instance, speaking of failing to treat others with respect, then perhaps the definitions of misconduct as set out in pages 4 to 9 of the Code need revisiting.
Right, anybody like to comment on that?
No debate.
No?
No debate.
No comment. Okay, thank you. We'll go on to the public issues. I've done that. Right, 12 out of 34 complaints. So that was just a ratification. The next one is number 8, annual report and code of conduct of complaints. Yes.
Chairman, if I can introduce the reports for you. So I refer members to page 7 in your agenda pack. This report is brought to the committee in line with the committee's responsibilities to conduct an annual review of complaints. Members will recall that the Code of Conduct was updated most recently in November 2021 and in the current constitution. That's in line with the model code of conduct that was recommended by the LGA and is in accordance with the provisions of the Localism Act of 2011. The Act also requires the Council to appoint at least one independent person. BCP actually determined to appoint 3, Paul Cashmore, Ian Sibley and Jonathan Story, and I'm sure members would join me in thanking the independent persons for their contributions and time and commitment to this process. The arrangements for handling complaints were revised in March 2021, permitting the monitoring officer to undertake an initial assessment, to dismiss complaints where appropriate, or to introduce mediation on those complaints as well. From section 9 in the report, we've outlined some of the statistics in relation to complaints over the last 3 years. The table in paragraph 9 demonstrates that the number of complaints against BCP councillors has increased quite significantly, doubling the number that we received and dealt with in 2019. The table at paragraph 13 shows that the vast majority of complaints are still originating from the public, although we have seen quite a rise on councillor against councillor complaints. Again, over the last 2 years. I should say that the statistics for these complaints is the determination date. So it falls into the relevant year once it's determined. So there are a number of complaints that will be pending and will clearly fall into 23-24 for these statistics that haven't been dealt with yet. The predominant behavioural source continues to rise in relation to activities on social media. I think it's probably worth pointing out because there's quite a few in terms of other complaints in that table as well, and quite a few of those relate to activities or behaviours in the council chamber or the live stream, which again you might argue is social media or ward related activities. When submitting complaints, the complainant is asked to indicate which element of the code is alleged to have been breached. And again, those are set out in paragraph 16 of the report, with the predominant ones being failure to treat others with respect, bringing the office of councillor or the council into disrepute, and behaviour that's deemed to be intimidatory or bullying. Reassuringly, I think, whilst the numbers have significantly risen, reassuringly, members will note that there are still low numbers of complaints which are either deemed at the initial assessment stage to be a potential breach or have been referred to an independent investigator and found to be in breach of the code. However, the numbers of complaints are still a concern in terms of resourcing those and the impact on the service in dealing with other core activities of the service. The committee is asked to consider the report and consider whether there's any areas or further actions that should be undertaken in response to the report in light of the growing numbers. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Dave Felson.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Jones, is there any scope in view of the various different types of complaints? And I know we only have a year left of this term of office, but it does seem to me that there is a desperate need for some retraining of particularly of our own members with regards to use of social media, what can and can't be said in it, and how they behave and respond on it, because that does seem to be a source of quite a lot of the complaints. And also just in the general way that we behave towards each other. I think it may be time for some refresher training for everyone to undergo along those lines, because it really needs. Just as a follow-up question, how many of the complaints are actually deemed to be, dare I say, frivolous? I know that this site dismisses a lot of them. Are they have a percentage of them being serious complaints, or are there quite a few that are just, you know, talk to each other, stop being silly about things, and just maybe pick up the phone and just talk to each other about.
I may invite the monitoring officer to comment as well. We will be developing a full training schedule for members, clearly for the post-elections. When we introduced the new code, we did roll out training, and I think all councillors attended that training in November 2021, so that wasn't very long ago. I do appreciate that some of the training, mainly in relation to COVID, was actually stopped. We had to put things on hold while we focused on other activities. It's something that we're very keen to pick up and actually roll out other parts of training. We have carried out social media training. The members will be aware of that, but it's certainly an area that we need to. I think in relation to frivolous complaints, I think any complaint. I mean, don't get me, there are some that are outside our jurisdiction. I think they are. I mean, any complaint is an expression of dissatisfaction by the complainant. But I don't think any have been deemed to be frivolous in that sense. Great step to take. So I think it's my comment is reiterate. I think any complaint needs to be taken seriously. It is an expression of dissatisfaction for a behaviour or action of a councillor.
Councillor.
Chairman, couple of observations, couple of questions perhaps I can ask through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Jones. This jump in the number of complaints seems to coincide with the adoption by this council of the new code of conduct, which itself was actually based on a recommended LGA model, Local Government Association model. Is that a reason for the jump? The other thing I have noticed is that we are, instead of perhaps getting one person, one member of the public, for example, complaining against a councillor, getting half a dozen people writing in. So that has bulked up the number because there's multiple complaints, all similarly worded, perhaps. And the other question, observation, appreciate Richard may not have had time to do this. Has the increase at BCP Council been reflected at other local authorities? Does it have to be across the south? Because obviously if they've all jumped up in other local authorities, perhaps, there's something that should be tweaked with the code of conduct to improve it. Thank you.
Done. Oh, done. Susan, please.
So, Councillor Andrews, as to your last point, the only information I've got is anecdotal based on conversations I have with monitoring officer groups across the country. They do report to me that the numbers of complaints are generally rising. I don't think it's necessarily as a result of the new code, but more possibly the effect of the pandemic and people feeling more emboldened doing face with the subject of the complaint, and also social media and the more general use of the computer. Total only, but I think it's quite telling.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think paragraph 17 and the table that's set out under that paragraph is very illuminating because of the move that was made earlier by asking the monitoring officer to see if there were scope for informal resolution. And the numbers just show that in 21-22, that 14 of those were informally resolved. Now, that may have just been asking for a very straight apology to be sent to someone, or for someone to really understand what is the true nature of making a complaint under the code that we follow. And I think that graphically shows how we've shifted in terms of closing down what could have been otherwise matters that would have come to this committee, which would have then taken inordinate time for the committee and its independent persons to actually go through in a lot of detail to the cases made from the complainant to the councillor as well. So I think I have great hope that that trend is actually going to save this committee an awful lot of work, but will enable us to look at what are probably the more serious cases, which unfortunately do come up.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's difficult. I think we live in a time when people are encouraged to complain about all sorts of things, not just for council things, but to report to the police activities. We've all been hearing about it recently. Famous people, all sorts of things. People are now used to complaining and to putting in a complaint. And the thing that disturbs me is this: the many complaints which are not treated with respect, because that's very subjective. What I think is a respectful way of talking, if I can't resolve somebody's problem, they might think I'm not treating them with respect. I mean, this happens all the time. I'm sure all of us have had that. Someone comes to you with something you just can't do. And one person's forceful way of going about things can be taken very, if someone's feeling rather vulnerable, they can take that as being bullying or lack of respect. And I don't like, I find the wording lack of respect is very woolly. And although we can all have training, absolutely, every single council's got to have training on how we deal with our colleagues and our peers, the general public aren't going to have that training. So if the majority of the complaints are coming from residents, it's going to be very difficult. How do you define lack of respect? Particularly people who are feeling vulnerable for whatever reason, vulnerable enough to contact a counsellor to say, I need help. They might well feel that they're not being treated with respect if that help doesn't come. I'm not asking for an answer. It's really more an observation.
Councillor, yes, please.
Can I just ask, we've got here monitoring officer informal resolution, potential breach informal resolution. What does that actually mean, informal resolution? When it says monitoring officer, like, is it decision made by the monitoring officer or potential breach? To explain actually, because it's not clear to me, that's all. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. Yeah, apologies. I can clarify that in the future edition of this annual report. So and obviously the monitoring officer informal resolution was introduced for this particular version of the report. So the process of assessing complaints, initially the monitoring officer will undertake an initial assessment and may at that point identify that actually, for instance, the complainant is simply wanting contact, is wanting an apology, is wanting information, and therefore an informal resolution. By that means that the monitoring officer has dealt with it and reached an informal resolution. Could be an apology, could be provision of information that the complainant was seeking. The next line down, in terms of potential breach, that's when the assessment has moved to the committee, to the chair. The next stage is if the monitoring officer is, after looking at that initial assessment, decides to refer it to the chair. The next level is that the chair of the committee, in consultation with the members of the committee and the independent persons will then undertake that next level of assessment and determine the complaint. So that next one down, potential breach, informal resolution, is following a decision by the chair.
Thank you.
So that one that you just said, then that may not come to a formal meeting of the committee then. It may just be an informal meeting of the committee, is that right?
And the process is set out in the code of conduct and the arrangements for dealing with complaints. So it's referred to the chair to determine in consultation with the committee members and the independent persons. And that's the process. The next stage on is not to the committee. The next stage then is an independent review. So the complaints are not, the committee will look at complaints that are having been looked at by an independent investigator, then come back. So that's the arrangements that are set out in our constitution.
Bit to last, but I'm not too sure how respectful the members are to the members in the chamber. That's two different sorts of people. We have a case here, one person is challenging another and it's cost £6,000. Well, when two councillors are arguing and it costs the council £6,000, that is not on. My opinion is really what we should say, until we bring up something a lot stronger to stop people ignoring the Standards Board's decisions, right? We should think about suspending the councillors from giving us only the stuff which comes from the public or other organisations, because we've got to sort ourselves out. We can't spend £6,000 and the person still won't apologise. So somewhere there's a lack of respect to yourselves, really. We've got to sort it out. We can't carry on like this. This is crazy. This one, I've sat here sometimes and over a year and it's still being deducted. So really, this type of business really should be done in a meeting and finished with, not go on for a year. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, you know, I just feel that we really should seriously think about suspending the members in the council until the officers draw up a proper conclusion of how to stop people just wasting people's time. What's it to do with Baden Powell still now? I mean, that was all over in a flash in the Echo, but that it's going on around. Anyway, that's what I'm saying, really. We've got to consider, are we getting the proper respect from the members and the standing board? Do they want a standards board? Thank you, Councillor Rook.
Sorry, Chairman, can we just come in?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Chairman, just to clarify, obviously you mentioned suspension of councillors. That's not a sanction that is permitted under the current code of conduct regime. So we are constrained in terms of our actions. I think I'm going to have to correct you. I don't think we've had any complaints that have gone to an independent investigation following a dispute or a complaint within the council chamber. I don't believe we've had one of those that have come through. And I think we need to be careful that we don't discuss individual complaints and the details of individual complaints, because we try to be as open and transparent with the information we've got in front of us. But in order to do that, we need to actually make sure that we are not disclosing information about individuals.
Yeah, just to echo what Mr. Jones has said, the rules that we have adopted as a council based on the Local Government Association recommended model don't give the sanctions that you're suggesting ad hoc we should be implementing. There is a guidance note which I printed out and it's here somewhere, which summarises the new code of conduct which the Local Government Association have published, which we actually gives some very good examples as to cases which will help the committee. And it's something which I think was circulated about a year ago. Of course, there's been a massive change in the membership of this committee over the past several weeks even. And perhaps through you, Mr. Chairman, can I ask Richard perhaps to circulate that LGA guidance note to the new committee members And perhaps, you know, because we do have these informal meetings from time to time, could I make a proposal that we have a training session, even if it's only 3/4 of an hour, for the committee on that, and it would include the independent members, because I think they would benefit from it. Because one of our committee members, who unfortunately is on holiday this evening, Vanessa Ricketts, well, I'm not suggesting she presents it, but she actually does for other local authorities, gives presentations on this particular matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very useful. Thank you.
Chair, if I can just quickly come back, we need to have an informal consultation meeting. We'd have complaints that need to be looked at. We were actually discussing, Susan, the monitoring officer and I were discussing around maybe at the next one of those consultation meetings, actually holding a session there around for the new members of the committee. I can certainly circulate the LGA guidance. It's all on the website, but I can certainly circulate the details of that.
Anybody else on that? No? Okay. Sorry.
From an independent point of view, I think Councillor Brooks referred to the increase in the informal resolutions, and can I pay tribute to the monitoring officer who was asked to get involved more during the year, and indeed Mr. Jones has referred to the work that she did in reducing the number of complaints that have come to the informal stage of the committee meetings.
Thank you. Nothing to pass on that. Move on. Happy to move on.
So, Chairman, the recommendation on the report is for you to obviously consider the report. It is for information, but it's whether to identify any other areas. So you've clearly identified training needs for the councillors on social media. Clearly, we are going to work on a full development plan for new councillors in 2023, and clearly we can pick up the comments from Councillor Andrews around circulating the details for members and doing a session for the committee as well.
So it's taken that we recommend the annual report on the code of conduct for complaints be reviewed and any areas where further work be identified for inclusion in the work programme. Are we happy with that? All right, just nod your head, it won't fall off. Thank you. Right. Item 9, Code of Conduct Complaints Review. Chairman, to invite Richard Jones, Head of Democratic Affairs, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This one's a little bit more straightforward. I think this is a standard item now that you have on each of your agendas, and I appreciate for the new members on the committee, just to give a bit of a background to it. It is a summary of the current status of all complaints within the process. You'll see it paragraph 6 is the details of the table. This is a rolling schedule, so we will remove items from this schedule that were shown as closed at the previous meeting, and then we provide details of the nature of the allegation, the outcome and decision, or the status of an individual complaint. Clearly, this was the position as it was at the time of writing the report. If things change, then clearly, and something was reviewed, then we would leave the item. It's just to give a flavour of the items that we're looking at, what we have on the table. It is a very lengthy table on this occasion. The previous report was in February, so we're not talking too long ago in that sense. But there were quite a few complaints that were related. So just to reassure members, there was an incident or an activity or a behaviour that took place which generated a number of complaints related to that same issue. That's not all of them. It's clearly larger than we would normally have seen. But again, for information, have to again answer any questions.
Questions, please? No? Okay. So you agree? Sorry.
Just a quick question. We've been told at other meetings that, okay, that's the published list, but equally there are some waiting in the wings, which she's yet to process. You know, are there a large number in your in tray which haven't been processed yet, or are we reasonably up to date on this list, please?
Yeah, Susan, is it? Or you got that?
I believe BCP 103 is the last one I have registered in my database.
So you're happy to recommend that the outcome of the concluded complaints and the progress of those still outstanding be noted. You're happy with that? Thank you. Now, recommending is that we have an exclusion period from the public and the press.
Chairman, can I just,
Can we, are we going to go into that? Sorry. Yeah, I've not done it, so I'm just saying.
That's fine, Chairman. I'll just very quickly introduce, since the monitoring officer may wish to add something. Before we proceed to exclude the press and public and effectively stop the live stream for the public, the committee should be satisfied that the interest in withholding the identity of the complainants and the subject councillors, detailed in the report that you have in restricted papers, outweighs the public interest in disclosing this information. We clearly normally try to be as open and transparent as possible, but clearly there are details here about complainants. So we have left it as a potentially restricted paper, but it is your decision as a committee to determine that matter. If you're satisfied that that position, that the holding the information outweighs disclosing it, then you should pass the resolution. If you decide the other way around, then clearly we will maintain the meeting in open session, subsequently make the report.
Comments, please.
Mr. Chairman, having read the confidential report and having been of hold when this those two complaints first came in, I would support holding fairer to both the people who've made the complaints and the person who has been complained about. So if you do need a proposal from the floor to go below the line, I would so propose. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Gary. I think we should definitely keep to below the line. The names are mentioned in our report, and I don't think it would do either the complainants or the recipients any good whatsoever to have the names broadcast in public at this moment in time. So totally happy to support that.
Over the line. Can you hear me? Yep.
Chairman, just for the record, we will now stop the live stream.
And yes, and the live stream will be introduced as well.